Congratulations on an amazing film. I got to see it on Friday. The very first scene when I get to see Angela Bassett, she has on these amazing earrings.
Oh, yes.
I was dying. How did you come up with just how you wanted everyone to look? It's so regal. It's so rich.
I started with African culture, the indigenous tribes. I really tried to understand all the different areas of Africa and stay true to each nation, each people, each cultural influence. Ramonda from the comics is a Zulu, from the Zulu people. Mm-hmm. And so that hat that she wears is a married woman's hat from the Zulu people. And so I started there. It feels like a crown. And there were other influences from fashion. So I infused kind of an Afrofuturistic model with African culture and came up with ideas that I presented to Ryan and showed to, the whole Marvel team.
We honestly said no very... Well, this is an origin movie. We're not sure because they're always a little bit unsure when it's the first of. So again, it was encouraging to do more. Even now, hey, it's not too late because I still think kids by Christmas are going to want more stuff. So it really that was our focus.
I kind of created my own curriculum at Hampton, and they allowed me to. So I went into the theater department in my junior year. I started as special ed in education, and then I switched over to theater. And I wanted to be an actress, and I didn't make an audition on one of the plays, and the director, which was the professor, asked me if I wanted to do the costumes, and I said yes. I was comfortable with sketching and sewing, and so I felt like it was something that I could do. And once I did that, I did everything that the theater department produced. I did everything that the music department produced as far as musicals. I worked with the fraternities, people and their senior thesis projects. So I was the girl on campus that was the costume designer. So I thought, I switched my major to theater arts, but there was no emphasis on costume design. So I thought, not only am I actually figuring this out for myself, I better get some books. So I, went to the library, no Google, went to the library, got books on costume design, read about it. Then once I graduated, I realized that I had a good kind of working knowledge of costume design and what it meant. And my instructors were kind enough to sort of give me some guidance, but I needed to do some real practical training. And so I went and sought out some pretty big internships. I went to Santa Fe Opera and interned there for a season, and also did a big theater back in Massachusetts, and kind of got my footing from there. But Hampton was huge. They allowed me to just play in the costume shop and do my thing.
We actually have a premiere in South Africa, and then we're doing a screening in Kenya.
Okay.
But we don't have more plans beyond that because we typically only do 1 or 2 spots per continent.
Now that it's done, do you guys have just like your proudest moments now that the baby is kind of complete in one regard, but even though it hasn't officially released to the public, I mean, you've got the pre-sales, you got people all over talking about it.
Well, I feel like that is kind of my ultimate favorite moment to, hear and soon to witness what the public does when they go see it. I'm so excited that people will kind of experience the film and have their own experience that's connected to the film out in the audience. So I'm looking forward to that. When you first, as a creator, as a designer, when you first see the film, it's kind of like you're under siege. You go, oh, but where's that? We wanted to stay on that. And so it's hard to actually see it
and take it in.
With this one, I enjoyed it. I laughed. I loved Shuri's character. She was a favorite. Yeah, I loved how my Lupita turned out. She had so many different arcs and levels to her characters. But I, like a lot of people, need to see it again and again and again. Because every time you see it, you're going to discover more things and have new favorites.
And that hashtag almost was my proudest moment. Because to some degree, press and premieres are somewhat tainted because it's home court advantage, right? Like, I hope you like my movie. I'm sitting in the theater. You better clap. You know what I mean? Like, and all of the, sort of the love we were getting online, which was honestly kind of surprising and overwhelming. was cool because people loved that trailer, people loved that poster, but that hashtag was like, oh, this is actually what it means to people personally, even just the notion that this movie existed. And that's something that we take for granted, not because we don't care, but because when you're making a movie, you're just like, hey, how are we going to finish this day? Or like, how do we make that visual effect look as good as possible? And that sort of hit home, oh yeah, this is going to be important to people in a way that I was not prepared for. So I thought that was really powerful. What it means to me, I mean, look, hard to separate emotions from just for me, the love of the character, because I grew up with him, you know. So it's a dream come true. Sounds kind of cheesy and trite, but it just knowing that like this thing exists now in the world for everybody to fall in love with, I think is really interesting because it's something that I've lived with for so long.
And I think what Black Panther means to me is that we can take pride in our history. We don't necessarily have to hide because we think that, you know, Africa is a one-dimensional place. It was a world-sharing continent. There are influences of Africa all over the world, and I think that it means that we can step out in pride. We can walk in this aesthetic and know what it is. It gives us a vehicle for communicating to others what it is, and you know what it is to be African American.
And what's interesting, just real quick about that, we have a guy at work who's our post supervisor for the entire studio, who's Mexican American, and he for the premiere it was royal attire, right? So there's going to be a lot of dashikis and a lot of African print. But he wanted to wear his culturally traditional garb because he was like, oh, we get to celebrate culture, you know. And even in Korea when we had the Seoul premiere, people were wearing their traditional Korean.
I love it.
So it became a celebration of culture no matter where you were from, which I think is really special. And again, something you didn't anticipate, but it doesn't just it's not just about Africa, which it should be, and that is great. Now everybody can say, I can flex for where I'm from. That's cool, you know, and it becomes cool again. We thought that was really cool. Intentionally so. I mean, Ryan had a very strong, specific vision for what Nakia and Okoye could be. When you cast Lupita Nyong'o and Denai Guerrera, who are fantastic actresses, that is even cemented more, I would say. And they took it so seriously because it was so personal for them. So even on the day, you know, there's that scene, for instance, in Tribal Council where they confront each other because T'Challa's just died and you have to decide what to do. And that scene was really powerful, even on a blue screen stage, frankly, where you're like, oh, this is going to work. These characters are going to resonate. And Shuri, again, is the third leg of that table that I think people walk away going, Shuri's my favorite, no, Okoye is my favorite, no, Nakia is my favorite. And you're right, they do steal the movie in a lot of different regards. What I think is great is they all exist in the same movie. But they're all different.
And the balance between male and female you don't see. Usually it's the male who saves the female. This is a balance, and I think that's what also makes it really great. They support each other. Like, for example, at the Warrior Falls, we had it divided. You know, there were almost an equal number of people in each tribe. And in our meetings, Ryan talked about he wanted it to be this visual feast. And so I was waiting for this moment to present this. It was towards the end of our schedule because we did have actual cliffs that we made up and water, so it had to be warm. So we waited until the weather got better to have this scene happen. So in all of that time, I'm studying these tribes. I'm working with elements of these tribes in other scenes. So by the time we got there, I was uber ready. I was the girl who was putting images up in the background area as they were getting dressed. I was there at 4:00 in the morning when the extras arrived. I was the one who tied the turbans the best. Therefore, it was my job to do it. And then they waited for me every morning, which was problematic. However, it meant a lot to me to show the Tuareg because the Tuareg was our merchant tribe. The river tribe represented Lupita and her beautiful costume, and they had a specific color palette that Ryan chose from the Suri people. The mining tribe was from from the Himba and the Tsusami people with the beads and the orange, the rich orange color. So I knew exactly, how to color those nations, and how they represented. We had even Zulu. We had Zulu drummers.
Yeah.
So, in the midst of creating T'Challa and Killmonger and making sure that Zuri's had multiples because he's standing in a pool of water all day, there was this beautiful feast of tribal cultures that were all descending on the King's Challenge. And I feel like when I saw that, even in the trailers, and there's a lady on the cliffs and she's moving her dress, everyone, all of the background just loved their costumes, and they really, wanted to be a part of this film.
That's awesome. So in speaking, again about the look. So for, I don't know, I guess months now on social media.
You're the lady, so we're going to talk about the
No, do it.
This will tie into the both of you.
Okay.
But on social media, I mean, we've been talking about, we're going to show up at the movie in our finest, most, biggest head wraps and all of those things. So the premiere, I mean, the looks were incredible. So in this same talk, when Halloween rolls around, do my little black boy and my black girl I have at home possibly have a chance to purchase some of these costumes or these looks like for Halloween?
I've seen some of the costumes actually, like they were manufactured, merchandising and stuff.
Yeah, I
have nothing to do with that.
And again, I think they will probably be more as again if the film opens in the way we hope it does, and people really replace it. I think there's an opportunity too. I saw a bunch of kids in London in cosplay of all these, and it was like, oh man, it was so cool.
Yes, I think that the red carpet was just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, the purple carpet.
The purple carpet.
Yeah.
Yes, I read the comics. I actually, when I was told I got the movie, I was standing on the set of Marshall. I was designing Marshall, and I was standing in front of my director, who was Reggie Hudlin, and then in front of the lens was Chadwick Boseman. So I thought, Eureka! So do I tell them or do I not tell them? I held it as a secret for a long time, and then I went and bought Reggie's book, Reggie's comic, and I presented it to him, and everyone's very proud of their contribution to the Black Panther history. And so I went through the comic with Reggie, and I said, okay, so what makes up Wakanda for you? And he's like, oh, it's how they infuse the wearable tech, the technology, and the tradition. And so he kind of got the ball rolling. I didn't really share as much with Chadwick because I was focused on him actually playing the role of Thurgood Marshall, and I didn't want another superhero, but I did. And Tanashi Coates, I looked at them, but it was for me, it was permission to broaden my scope.
Very much, and wanted to sort of in our way, as much as you can, tell the story of the diaspora and what it means to be African American and be disconnected from the culture of Africa. Something that Ryan, I think, really believed in, and it's very personal to him. One of the first things he asked, which we said, of course, when he took the movie, was, "Can you send me to Africa?" I've never been, because nobody I know has ever been. And I think that sort of disconnect from again, our code name from the film was Motherland, but that disconnect from your roots was something that was really interesting. And I think we could have told the story of T'Challa and Wakanda and not gone to America, but I think that would have been a huge missed opportunity, because it speaks to so much of what we all probably have experienced in our lives, which is that separation from where we've come from. So I think it makes the movie. One of the first things we talked about in Wakanda, and it's different in the books, right? In the books, Wakanda is a public place, everybody knows about it. In our Marvel Cinematic Universe, when the film opens, nobody knows about Wakanda. So the notion that Wakanda exists, has all these resources, and lives in Africa, a continent that is sort of plagued by conflict of all different kinds. Right. We knew we wanted to tell the story of whether or not they feel responsibility for what's happening. Right. And that was a conflict specifically that unfortunately is ongoing, but that's real. Yeah. And we wanted to have them come face to face with a real thing, and have there be commentary of, wait a second, Wakanda's not perfect because this is happening. Right. And they are not doing that much about it, and maybe they should. Yeah. It would have been, I think we would have been cheapening what Wakanda meant if we didn't tackle that. Right. Of what was happening in Africa with this country that we're saying is that advanced. And again, that is a real thing that people should be aware of if they are not.
Right.
So we didn't want to exploit it. We wanted to use it to shine a light on a real issue that is again ongoing, but